right. Well, hey, Barrel or Nah, brought to you by Buell. I've got something exciting to announce. We are going to give away a Buell wetsuit in 1 month at the end of July.
You were in luck, listener. I've been wearing my Buell wetsuit and loving my Buell wetsuit. I don't know how you can make a better wetsuit than a Buell, to be honest.
I agree. And they're like, look, we're going to give away a listener to your guys' fans, your guys' listeners, however you want to do it. And so what I think we should do is we've been doing those pros in the wild stories. Send them in. And at the end of the month, we're going to pick our favorite one. So send in pros in the wild starting now. We will read them in the next 3 weeks throughout the month of July. And then in the final week of July, you and I will decide which was our favorite. And maybe we'll even post them on Instagram and like get an Instagram poll. You could weigh in on which was your favorite throughout the month. And then whoever submitted that story will win a Buell wetsuit. And guess what? Pick any wetsuit off their site. There's no restrictions. So any wetsuit off buellsurf.com, and we'll give it to you for free.
Love it.
I know, so good. And then if you want to purchase a suit, by the way, the promo code is BuellGrit25 to save 25%.
And they're going to figure this out before, like someday they're going to figure this out. This 25% is too much. So take advantage of this opportunity while you can.
Totally. They're losing money at that point.
Yeah.
All right. First Barrel or Nah comes from a longtime listener and supporter.
Hey, David and Chaz. This is Kevin from up in Ventura. Calling with a Barrel or Nah today. But before that, a quick public service announcement for anyone that's not subscribing to the Grit. I've been enjoying my Roger Hines surfboard that I won I think last year. Amazing board, and super stoked that I won that with the gift package. So get on it, people. Let's support the podcast. And on to the Barrel or Nah. So been spending a lot of time in waiting rooms, doctor's offices, places that are typically quiet, and people that leave their ringers on. And I'm not so bothered by the ringing, but a lot of people have those Ring doorbells, and some will be walking in and out of their house. So you're sitting somewhere where it should be quiet, and that thing just keeps going and going and going. Even have it happen in a bunch of business meetings, like just turn the thing off. But wanted to get your take on that. And then a side Barrel or Nah, if you're a podcast host and you do not turn your ringer off and you can hear the messages pinging through, is that a Barrel or Nah? Not pointing fingers at anyone, but thought I would share. Anyways, keep up the mediocre work. Talk to you later.
Wonderful. So, Kevin, it's a no barrel for ring on. Unless you're 70 or up, right? Like if you are 70 years old and you just got a cell phone, like you're stumbling around with it, you don't even know what vibrate is. My only time my ringer's on basically is if I'm like going to sleep at night and the child is having a sleepover, and so I'll, in case there's some kind of problem and I need to wake up, something like that. In a public place, there is no time or need for any ringer ever, unless you're senile. That's thing one. For me, no barrel.
Yeah, absolutely no barrel. The ringer on is an absolute offense to society. It was one thing we had ringers on our phones because it was private and it was in your house, and you needed to be notified because if you missed the call, there was no other way to know that person. And then eventually we had answering machines. So then it wasn't so much a threat that you were going to miss the call. But at this point where we're all existing in society, in public together, and the phone is in your pocket, and you'll notice that the call was missed because there's an identifier, and then they can also leave a message and they can also text message you. There is absolutely no reason to have your ringer on. If we all had our ringers on for every notification on our phone, it would be pings nonstop all day, and it would be a cacophony of noise. Nobody would get anything done. It'd be incredibly annoying. So just like you're not supposed to bring your boombox to the beach or on a hike with you because you're disrupting everybody else's serenity, if you're the one who has your ringer on in public, you are the one disrupting everybody else's serenity. And I will a little bit co-sign what Chaz said, which is there is a certain age divide here where if you are of an older generation...
Like if you're senile, really. Like if you just can't sort stuff out.
But here's my problem with those people as well, is the phone starts ringing, they look at it, you can shut that ring off by just tapping the down volume button on the side of the phone and then assess who's calling and whether or not you want to answer. But what I often see that older generation do is the phone starts ringing.
And they'll
They
just stare
look,
at it.
they stare at it. It continues ringing. They're deciding what they want to do. It's on the 5th ring and they're still looking at it. Then they put it down while it's still ringing, deciding they don't want to answer, and let it go through its entire cycle until the voicemail picks it up. I'm like, oh, why didn't you silence your phone? You know,
Yeah.
we all know now all that it's doing is annoying everybody in the space. Shut the ringer off. And I'll tell you what, if I wanted to pay you back, I would turn my ringer on. I have notifications going. I get 1,000, literally
bing, bing.
1,000 notifications a day. And I could out annoy you if I were a dick and I wanted to. But I'm not. I'm just going to quietly judge you.
Here's the thing, though, with Kevin's second point. And let's just be honest, there's a lot of things old people should not do. Old people should, we'll just leave it at that. But the notification during the podcast, I totally hear you. And I am sorry for each time I've pinged. Usually it's because I forgot to, which again, I am a senile old person at that point. If I am not professional enough to put my do not disturb on before podcast, then I cannot judge grandma in the waiting room.
Yeah. Well, pull back the curtain a little bit for Kevin there. I've got a laptop going right now and I've got my phone. My phone is always silenced, but sometimes I forget to disconnect the iMessage app on the computer, on the laptop. So the texts are coming through on that.
Here's a quick, though, pro tip for you, David Lee. You just turn your phone on do not disturb, and then it'll stay do not disturb on your computer too.
Boom, got it. I was going to say the other thing is you can just shut the volume off on your Mac, but
you can't.
You
it's
need to
hard
hear
do
the
that.
volume of the person that you're talking to. So that's
It's do not disturb is the workaround there.
There you go. And the other thing, though, pulling back the curtain more, is even if I remember to do that, my guest that I might be interviewing on Surf Splendor is new to tech, and they might not know to do that, and it's hard for me to communicate to them how to do that. So that's some of what happens. Or sometimes we just forget to do it. But thank you for that, Kevin. I think that leaving your ringer on, I cannot believe we've never addressed that before, because that has quietly annoyed me for years now. Every single week
you, Kevin.
I encounter it.
Thank you.
So thank you. Barrel or non number 2? Wrapping your leash around your fins.
This is a tough one. I'd never do it. Ever do it. Every once in a while, I'll like trip on my leash. I'll be like having the cuff in my hand and the leash is dragging too low. You know, I don't have that one extra loop on it. And so I'll like do the stumble. And so I totally see a function behind it, even though it completely looks to me like you are an anal retentive person. Like the person who tightly wraps, that like I can pretty much say you are an A-type, like everything needs to be in order, obsessive compulsive, borderline. But there's a real function to it. But just like there is a real function to being neat and orderly too, I suppose.
But the weird thing about this one is there's no reason not to do it, except that it's kooky.
Yeah.
Like
and it takes some time.
Barely. It barely takes any time at all. It is, I think the reason I don't do it is just because it's a kooky move. For some reason, it was identified, I think newbies do it. And so then it just becomes, and you're right, it takes a little bit of additional effort. So you see new people taking the time. At some point you don't do it, and so you just stop doing it, and you don't want to be identified as a kook, because there's really no reason not to do it otherwise.
But I'm going to
I never do it, though.
I never do it. So I'm going to stay the course and say it is a no barrel.
Yeah, I'm going to go no barrel too.
Yeah, it's just it's a kook identifier.
Well, the reality is also I never trip on my leash like you're talking about. I always make sure to wrap it
at least one wrap in, or like
just exactly. Or I'm taking boards out of my garage to put in the back of my car, and it drags. It'll drag. I let it drag if it's not in threat of catching something, and if it is in threat of catching something, I just wrap it up in my hand, and that's enough. You know what I mean? Like you don't actually need to wrap it around the fins.
Yeah, it's a anal retentive marker that doesn't. Yeah, you just need to drop that.
I was thinking too, back in the day, leashes are much better now and they don't coil. But back in the day, if you wrapped it around the back of your board, it would kink into a certain coil that would then,
Catch your foot.
yeah, exactly. It was kind of bent into that shape forevermore once you had it kind of trained in that way. And so that was a problem, but not so much problem anymore. Anyways, stop wrapping your leashes.
Yeah, no barrel.
Final barrel or not, in light of 4th of July coming up this next week, you're going to be at dining environments where there's lots of shared food, things all on one plate together. Maybe it's watermelon, maybe it's dip. Barrel or not, double dipping.
Oh, double dipping is such a no barrel. Unless you enjoy that dip so much that you want it all for yourself. If it's like a power move of like this,
You're going to contaminate the dip.
this ranch dip is so good, I want nobody else to have it. I'm going to double dip. If that's your move, then I'm going to say power move. Good on you. If you're accidentally doing it though, or just like not consciously doing it, come on, be an adult human being.
Okay, let me modify this because I think everybody would agree double dipping with the end of the chip that you had in your mouth is a no barrel. So let me modify it by saying
The flip.
the flip. You go back of the chip. You take one dip, bite, flip the chip, back of the dip goes back in the dip. That chip had been in your mouth, but that side had not been in your mouth.
It's true, but that side had been in your fingers, which, while not as bad as your mouth, is not exactly. It's like you dipping your finger into the dip too, right? Where that would be, if you saw somebody dipping their finger into the dip and then smearing it on something, even if they're not going to put it in your mouth, you would say that is uncouth, which is essentially what you're doing when you are taking the handle of your food and dipping that handle into the dip. Like,
That's a good point.
The thing is with dip, I think, dip has a critical problem in general, which I think is why Fritos or whoever made them made scoopers. That one that's like
Super
good for
smart.
dip. Yeah. Because carrot sticks, that first bite, the bite you dipped is good. Now you're stuck with a carrot stick. Who wants just a plain carrot stick? Celery? That
Disgusting.
part you dipped is great. Now you got a whole stalk of celery. Like, there should
Celery
be.
is only a vehicle for dip. It's even concaved that way.
It only is. And so dip is a problem in general because dip is delicious. I am a dip man. I love to dip. I love my dips. But am regularly stuck with food items I don't want to eat because I've eaten the good part already. And I can't be a kid and throw it away. I can't. I just got to suffer down that extra piece of bell pepper.
So I've got two things that I can do. I've never thought of this one before, but I'm thinking if you hold the chip with the tiniest amount of your fingers possible and you dip close to your fingers and do a like kind of 270-degree turn so that you get a little bit of dip around the entire rim of the chip, then you extract it, and the only part that doesn't have dip on it is where your fingers are placed. That could be the ultimate dip.
It could be, but you better have a plate nearby. There's going to be a drippy
that's true.
situation. There's going to be, I mean, like depending, that could be ideal, but there's a lot of things that can go wrong in that scenario. Like dip, the whole point of dip is ease. It should be an easy thing, and dip is incredibly. It is like harder than any Michelin star fine dining to master. There's no good way to do it.
So I've got advice for our listeners this 4th of July. If you have access to a plate, but you don't have access to a utensil to scoop dip onto the plate, use a chip as the scooping vessel. And that's going to be, a throwaway chip maybe because it's got too much dip on it at that point, but you use it to scoop all the dip onto your plate. Then you take a handful of chips, put them on your plate. Boom. Now you don't contaminate anything. You've got your own little dip situation.
Triple dip at that point, quadruple dip
That's
if
what
your
that
heart desires. Yeah, that's the real truth. I suppose hosts who serve big dishes of dip with fault is on them. Like a host who has a big old thing of French onion dip out there.
I knew you were going to love that French onion dip.
I love the French onion dip.
It's such a good dip.
But if you have a huge old thing, and that is the best dip, and like more deadly than any MSG. Once you taste a little bit of French onion dip, you're going to be fiending for French onion dip and bad for the next couple hours, right? Until you have a rotten stomachache. You're not going to be able to stop French onion dipping. And so you hosts are just torturing your poor guests. Like provide either small little dips that people can take or a way to, a nice serving spoon in the dip.
Dude, so I'm pretty sure I encountered that French onion dip, I'm going to say 5 times throughout the first 38 years of my life. Then I met Lauren. And the Parks family, her family,
French onion dip family?
every occasion. It doesn't matter. Summertime, wintertime, doesn't matter. We'll go on vacation somewhere. They'll make a trip to the grocery store to get that pack of powder and some sour cream. Those are the only ingredients. And I have fallen in love with that dip. I am a convert. I thought I was a guacamole man. I like
No.
I love a 7-layer dip. I love a ranch if you're talking about those aforementioned vegetables. But that French onion dip puts all of them to shame, and they will power through the thing. They will literally, it's a family of, I don't know, 6, maybe 7. They will clean out the entire bowl in short order, too.
I mean, I'm convinced that the number one ingredient on that packet must be monosodium glutamate. Like, there is no way that is not just pure, or it's maybe even cocaine. Like, it is so addictive that it's not just the way it tastes. A lot of things taste good, and get one taste to it, and I'm like, yeah.
Right. You turn into a fiend.
I will stand by that bowl of French onion dip like for 15 minutes, just standing there.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's weird. It's unnatural.
I totally agree. They are addicted. I have never seen this behavior in them prior, and I'm now inclined to taste the powder by itself. You don't even need the sour cream. And by this time next week on this show, I might be snorting the powder.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is that where it could go? I feel that
straight to the bloodstream, dude.
The fentanyl crisis could be averted by introduction of French onion dip powder into the community, except then they'll lace that with fentanyl. Then just everybody will be dead. That's all you need to do is put a little fentanyl in French onion dip, and you would kill the entire population.
I'm going to show up at our 4th of July get-together with their family with the French onion powder on a glass plate and rolled up dollar bills next to it.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll be like, where's the sour cream? I'm like, no, this week we're going straight to the bloodstream. Why are you guys messing around cutting it with sour cream? Freaking disgusting and tons of calories. Let's just do this stuff straight. They're like, man, your eyes are bug-eyed and I've never seen you so intense. I'm like, well, I've got a new passion in my life, ladies and gentlemen.
It's real good.
French onion. Man, okay, good. Well, hey, great advice for our listeners as always. So I'm glad we solved this one. Good job.
Yep.
And thanks to Buell, by the way, for supporting Barrel or Nah. We love Buell. We're going to give away a Buell. Best giveaway we've ever done. BuellSurf.com. Promo code BuellGrit25. Thank you so much.